How have you grown as a culturally responsive workshop presenter since last year?
Thanks for your question, Emily. I first began thinking about culturally responsive teaching practices last November at the workshop I gave at the Effective Transitions Conference in Rhode Island. I got a comment on the post-workshop evaluation about this slide and some of the other ones in particular. This slide concerns the practice for helping students transition from adult basic skills to college about getting a senior administrator involved. And some of the participants questioned why was the picture of my administrator white while pictures of students that I had throughout the slides were black. And so it was obvious they didn't feel that this was a very inclusive slide show that was part of my presentation. And at the time I really didn't understand why. But after our course I can definitely see. In the Establishing Inclusion chapter from Ginsberg and Wildkowski on page 75, it says one way to think about what respect means in a learning environment is to imagine an environment in which the integrity of each person is valued. This environment, within reason, welcomes each person's sense of worth and self-expression without fear of threat or blame. In such an atmosphere, people know they are respected because they feel safe, capable, and accepted. They feel respected because they know their perspective matters. I'd also gotten a comment in the workshop about a quote that I had said about helping students to find what they want to do for their career, and I had said something to the effect of that students didn't know whether they wanted to become doctors, lawyers, or Indian chiefs. And someone else wrote on the evaluation that I'd used the word Indian and that they prefer the term Native American. So obviously I had some work to do with establishing inclusion in my presentations. Okay. Have I told you lately about my midlife crisis? No. Well, I know some people have heard this, and if you've heard this before, bear with me. But I want to tell you a little bit about my midlife crisis. And you may be thinking, why on earth does he want to talk about his midlife crisis? Well, help to explain a little bit about my background is why I'm going to talk a little bit about my midlife crisis. So, what happens to a man, middle-aged man, during a midlife crisis?
Buys a sports car.
He buys a sports car. What else happens? He does some real life reevaluation. Maybe he changes jobs. Okay. What else happens? We got the car. We got the big life change. One other big thing that usually happens.
Marriage breaks up.
The marriage breaks up, and he takes up with this little sweet little 22-year-old thing named Bambi.
Right.
So I'll show you how my midlife crisis went, and you can see how I did on those three measures. Okay. So now that you know more than you wanted to about me, I would like you to get to know somebody you don't know. Well, I know what happens in these workshops. You come with a couple of your colleagues, and you don't even really like these people, but you hang out with them all day. You hang out with them all day because I don't want to meet anybody else. Oh my gosh. So I'm going to force you to meet somebody else today. And you're already saying, oh, wait till that evaluation comes. We're going to knock him down. So what I want you to do in just a minute is I'll have you stand up. And what I want you to do is find someone you don't know. Find somebody you don't know. And you're going to tell them who you are. That's pretty easy. Tell them what you do. I think we can all handle that. But the big question that I want you to discuss with this person is, why do you work in basic skills? Why do you work in basic skills, college and career readiness? Call it what you will. So let's fast forward to a presentation that I did down in Atlanta at the Georgia Adult Ed Conference in October. I was really thinking very carefully about being much more inclusive with my slides as I prepared for this workshop. Here's the Get the Senior Administrator Excited About Transition slide. Notice the change here. I also put in a slide about changing programs' focus to be thinking more about transitions. And I included a picture of Billy Mills, the Native American who won the 1964 Olympic 10,000 meter race, to show about him changing, reaching the finish line, helping programs to change their culture. I was really looking to be more inclusive, to try to get pictures of what the students and staff in Georgia looked like. And so really you can see that this looks more multicultural as we move on through. And I did not receive any negative comments about my PowerPoint slides at this workshop this year.
How do you use collaborative and cooperative learning in your workshops?
Here at the kitchen table to finish out our video, and it's only fitting that we're here at the kitchen table since that's been the way that culture has been transmitted down through the millennia. Well, Emily asked me about collaborative and cooperative teaching, which is a big part of establishing inclusion, and I do use that extensively in my workshops. Just yesterday, I was down at Isothermal Community College doing a workshop, and I had the participants working very regularly in groups. They would work in groups of 4. I'm also a really big fan of doing the think, pair, share technique, where they work in partner groups, and then we discuss it as a group of the whole. I had participants switch out groups so they get a chance to work with different people as well. So additionally to that, in establishing inclusion, I'm a big believer in the constructivist approach in helping learners to see how they'll make sense of the things that they've learned in the workshop. So I always spend some time toward the end of the workshop thinking about how they're going to use what they've learned and how they'll incorporate that into their classrooms. As far as developing attitude goes, I'm a firm believer in a contextualized approach. We really encourage instructors to teach in ways that their students can relate to, that make sense to students in their roles as family members, in their roles in the workplace, in their roles in society. And in math class especially, we work to do very contextualized activities like ordering in a restaurant, which brings in using percentages to figure out the tip and things of that nature. Also, with developing attitude, like to work with choices and give workshop participants choices as to what they would do. Do you want to spend some more time on this, or do you want to move on to something else? So it allows workshop participants to have some choice. And some. As far as enhancing meaning goes, the book had a wonderful quote talking about how human beings are rivers of curiosity, and I firmly believe that. I think the power of intuition is incredible. I always like to start workshops with a mystery. For example, at that transition workshop down in Atlanta, I talked about how is standing in a buffet line similar to the challenges our students face in transitioning to college, and talk about my experience standing in a buffet line and how a helpful hotel employee helped show me where the shortest line was, and how we as adult basic skills instructors can be that helpful hotel employee for our students. Also with enhancing meaning, I really believe strongly in meaningful projects throughout the workshops that we do, especially in the math ones. We do some hands-on projects that instructors can practice and then use with your students. In our evidence-based math course, we do one where instructors work with different types of graphs and use those eventually to create a pie chart. Last but not least, in gender and competence, I really believe that there's multiple ways of knowing things, and really stress in math that there's multiple ways that students can go about solving a problem to get the correct answer, and we shouldn't insist on just our way of doing things.
What are you planning to do in the future?
As far as the future goes, I know I certainly haven't arrived in terms of culturally responsive teaching. It does involve more work to teach in a culturally responsive manner, but I certainly do believe the payoff is well worth it for the time spent. I'm excited about trying some different things in the future. I really like the idea of writing groups, and I think that's a great way especially to use to help with revising and editing papers. And I'll be doing the evidence-based writing workshop in the spring and excited about telling people about that technique. Also, really interested in looking at using reframing more to help me. Sometimes we run into workshop participants with attitudes that aren't the greatest, so I'm going to try to do the best that I can to think about where they may be coming from and not allow that to spoil my attitude when we have some participants that may not have the background or be interested in that particular topic. Also really excited about multiple intelligences and the way that that can shape assessment and instruction, and look forward to experimenting some in that. Being a kinesthetic learner myself, I really enjoy doing things where I can move, like showing the different angle positions using your arms and things. So I look forward to the journey ahead.